I post this to Facebook. I've got about 500 Facebook friends. I post it to MySpace. I got about 30 people there. I post it to Flint Citizen Internet Advocacy. That's my Yahoo group. I've got 180 members plus on that. But the whole point here is to give information to the community from a Flint perspective and about issues of the day and issues that affect Flint. I'm going to presume that most of you don't know me if you happen to watch this, and we don't have any real idea what the listening audience is, but this is the future, this kind of a format. So I figure my role is to stumble into this and do some things, show other people that the water's fine, come on in, and then maybe some people smarter than me will pick up. I think Al Franken tried to do something similar to this, liberal talk radio. I don't even pretend to operate at that level. I am who I am. I self-describe myself as a liberal, but some parts of what I think really aren't. So here's who I am, and this isn't to aggrandize myself at all, but this is simply to let you know, the listening audience, because if this worked correctly, I posted this to Facebook, so I've got about 500 Facebook friends that could watch this. Here's who I am. I'm 57 years old. I was born in the city of Flint. Except for kindergarten through, I think, first grade, I lived in Flint all my life. I was a public figure in Flint, and then I had to get a real job as an attorney. Spent about 11 years working for the city of Flint, and it was my privilege to be the Flint Municipal Ombudsman for a full 7-year term, and I investigated police brutality complaints. I did about 300 a year. I was a one-man police oversight commission, basically, and there was only a couple of us in the country that have ever done that. And I managed a staff of 5 or 6. Did that for the full term, 7 years. Prior to that, I was the Flint City Clerk. I was an appointee of the Flint City Council. I managed the council affairs. I managed business licensing. And more importantly, I administered 11 elections, 3 of them federal. I was a professional election administrator. Prior to that, I did a 1-year stint at United Way as a fundraiser. And prior to that, I did 7 years as the executive director of the Genesee County Democratic Party, full-time paid staff. I had to raise my own money. So that's my career. Prior to that, I belonged to just about every union in town. I've been a member of the UAW. I was in Plant 4 for about 91 days, just long enough to have union dues taken out. And then I went to college. I managed a ski shop. I don't ski, so maybe that's how I ended up in politics. I've been a Teamster several times. I was a driver for 7-Up. I don't know if I had to join a union at UPS, but I was a truck washer at UPS. I belonged to the Railroad Brotherhood twice. For CNO and the other one, whatever the name of it is now. So I come from a union family. My dad was a beer driver. My mom was a waitress. I'm first generation college. I'm not eating a bag of chips. It took me 13 years to get my BA because I was doing all this other stuff. I have a master's in public administration that I just finished. And in between all of that, I got a law degree. And then after I left the ombudsman's office, I went into private practice. I served people doing low to moderate income divorces. I've done about 4,000 cases I've touched on because I was in a volume shop for a while. I've been on my own for about 4 years, and I'm trained and soon to be certified as court-appointed domestic mediator. So that's who I am. I'm a Flint boy, basically. I don't have any, I grew up being around Michael Moore, and I didn't rise to his greatness. Sam Riddle's my friend, and I don't understand half of what he knows in politics. But I'm here, and I'm doing this, and what I'm hoping I can do is, one, encourage people to be active in their community by sharing information, and hopefully we'll get to this call-in part of this where anything goes. I'll answer any question you might have. Because this really is about the community and helping to encourage people to get active. And if I can share my life experience with you, because I do. I feel an obligation because I had 11 years that I got paid very well by the taxpayers of this city. And I thought I worked hard. And I found out what hard is when I went into the private sector, and I kind of am apologetic for some of the biases I had against people in the private sector, but I know pretty much a little bit of both worlds right now. I've got a beautiful daughter that lives out of state, and I have a fantastic wife who happens to know where her first penny is and keeps me economically straight. So I can be a liberal Democrat, I guess. So that's who I am. But this really isn't about me. This is about issues, okay? This is Liberal Talk Radio as I define it. And I don't know what other kind of a heading to give me, okay? I came up with a group of people in the Democratic Party who all called themselves liberals. And for some reason, they all kind of wandered off and they call themselves progressives. I'm not quite sure what that means. It means they progressed away from the negative images of being a liberal, I guess. So much for personal strength. But I guess I have some base feelings. I think that our government should help the least of us with a special emphasis on the elderly and the young. I believe in a minimum amount of health care being provided. I believe that we take care of the people that can't take care of themselves, but I do differ with some of my brethren that when people can take care of themselves, they're on their own. I think that government needs to intervene where the market fails. We can look around Flint and see that the market has failed, at least for us now. Long term, it may be doing what a market has to do, reducing our housing values to just about nothing, so people can come in and start tearing the houses down and buying the land. But it's really hurting us in the interim. I believe that the theories of supply and demand have a lot of value, but also the theories of monopoly have a lot of value. And I think that our government has kind of forgotten the negative side of monopolies, particularly monopolies that are subsidized by foreign governments and what they can do to our economy. I personally am bewildered by NAFTA and how we allowed that to occur. And there's two sides of it. That one, to participate in the global economy, I'm all for that. But it seems like we just dropped our guard when it came to protecting our own borders from labor costs that are subsidized by government and other societies that have driven our businesses out of this country. So I think there needs to be an open debate on these issues. Currently I'm exclusively a family law practitioner, but I spent 3 years doing criminal defense work. I spent 2 or 3 years doing juvenile cases, and I'm going to really show myself to be a liberal at this point because I think we need stringent handgun controls. I think this is just out of control, and we have to do something right now. I'm against the death penalty because DNA is finding a lot of innocent people, and I don't know, who else can I tick off? That's kind of where I'm at. But I was telling my wife this morning that parts of me is I'm a hawk. When we put an army in the field, we fund them, we protect them. We're aggressive until we get these troops home. And my honest-to-God feeling is, from having read a little bit of history, knowing that most of government's business historically is about protecting resources and its people, that I personally think we have our armies in the wrong countries right now. I think we should have seized these oil fields. We had an opportunity many years ago to do that in Saudi Arabia, and we've lost that opportunity, and look what's happening to us now. I think that global warming is real. It can be cyclical or it can be man-made, but at this juncture, it is very real. I think gasoline at approaching $5 a gallon is real. I think our country being in a recession is real. I think we're at a point of almost a perfect storm of economic chaos, and we're totally dependent on what our leadership does. And what we need to do is get more active in our communities. So that's pretty much who I am. I don't know if that means anything to you, but if this show has any longevity to it, you had a right to know basically what my biases and perspectives are. What I'm going to do, if we actually can call him to come in, is that I'll respond to any question you might have except for my divorce practice. That's the only thing I'm not going to talk about here. At 9 o'clock every morning, I have a program on 1420 WFLT, which is about divorce law and about my practice, but not about my individual cases. And I do a Good Morning Flint blog on flinttalk.com, and it's published in a couple other places and also on Facebook, as I mentioned before. So that's kind of who I am and what I think I'm doing here. Part of what I'm going to do is when you block these things out, periodically I'll have speakers come in, but I'll fill the time with the topics that I wrote about in the previous week on my blog on flinttalk.com. I have the longer articles posted on a Google blog, and that's what I'm actually going to duplicate. But for instance, I did on April 24th, I did an article on Saudi Arabia. I'll talk about that. I did an article on the 27th on waterboarding. I did an article on the 30th on Reverend Wright and Obama and what I think's going on. And every Sunday I do an article on what I do, or every Saturday I do an article on what I'm putting on my radio program. On May 22nd, I also talk about Obama and my preference for him as a presidential candidate. So one reason I'm mentioning this is, too, that these are what I'm doing. This is how you find them. And if you want to ever ask me a question about something I posted, and if you can figure out how to get into this live, which will give you more information on that as time goes on, I'll answer any question you might ask with these considerations. And also, I'll answer any question you might have about anything I think's going on with Flint. And I'll never attack a sitting judge, but I'll never talk about the clients in my individual practice, but everything else is game. There's no screens, and on this show, I'm not going to be politically correct because I don't want to run for office, so I don't really care anymore. So with that, enough of that. I put on the on my website, I got kind of carried away. You know, what is my purpose here? To turn sheep into wolves. Did you know that we're the greatest democracy in the world, yet we are being led by or filled with fat, undereducated people that don't stand up for what they believe in? And we've allowed the wolves among us to plunder our country. Well, that was a bit of an overstatement. Maybe I wrote that just to irritate the Republicans that I talk with on flinttalk.com on occasion. I am a liberal, and I told them if they can figure out how to call in here, I'll answer any question they might have. And also what I'll do from this point on, if you ask me a question on flinttalk.com, or if you post it to my wall on my Facebook, I'll respond to it the following week if I'm invited back. So we're starting up, and this is what we're doing here. My general view of how to prepare for these shows is the thing I talk about first is what really has got my gall the most. And what I saw this morning when I was getting prepared, remember, I used to be an employee of the Democratic Party. I was executive director of the Democratic Party, and when I was there, we were actively engaged in party building. And I was a prodigy of UAW support, and UAW has a right to compete to control the Democratic Party. But it's a fine line. You still want to get people involved, so you want to sell the memberships, and you want to get people involved in the infrastructure of the Democratic Party. And to promote that, particularly if you are in control, you've got to be able to give up a little bit by providing access. And so my personal philosophy is that the Democratic Party should provide maximum access to people to get involved. And the people that get involved and control the Democratic Party have an absolute right to. They don't have to control any less. You just have to compete more. From my perspective, and I'm not going to trash any other parties, I've just made my choice. You make your own. That you can separate what I call the corporate Democratic Party from the small d activist, philosophical Democratic Party. And the corporate Democratic Party, here's what their role is. They are a decision-making body that sends people to another decision-making body that then makes decisions that affects all of our lives. The local Democratic Party will send people to a state convention that will make nominations for governor, lieutenant governor, high court positions, State Department of Education, and various colleges. The local Democratic parties, if there's a partisan vacancy, will send people to something called a county committee that will decide who the nominee is for a quick general election. The Democratic Party, as represented by the people who can vote, recently just had caucuses by congressional districts, and they made a decision to send people to another body that's going to decide who the President of the United States is going to be. Of course, that's my assumption the Democrat wins. That may not be yours, but that's mine. And so the corporate Democratic Party is a decision-making process of which, for the people that want to make the final decisions, control is extremely important to them. And how do you maintain control? You maintain votes. Who votes? Okay? Precinct delegates vote. Precinct delegates are the lowest elected office in the United States and probably the most important for the purposes of political control. Each precinct the precinct you live in has a number of seats available. The Democratic Party usually picks a high number so that anybody who wants to be a delegate can. I don't know what that number is now. The Republican Party tends to have a smaller number so that there's a little bit more competition. How do you get to be a precinct delegate? You have to get elected to it. How do you get elected to it? You have to get your name on a ballot. How do you get your name on a ballot? A, you try a write-in. I think you can do that. B, you circulate petitions if you miss the affidavit deadline. And C, it's a piece of paper. You put your name on it, your address, some other information, you notarize it, and you drop it off at the county clerk's office. Okay. So if you're committed to party building to help the small d Democrats compete in the forums that the corporate Democrats are controlling, and believe me, this is a competitive democracy. If you're losing, that's your fault. Just organize, win the next time. And so I thought, okay, I'm a party builder. I knew the precinct delegate deadline was coming up, so I'm going to check around and see what's going on. I could not find any information online or readily available that tells you how to become a precinct delegate. So I'm thinking, okay, Mark Brewer, he's a pretty loud, vocal guy. He's made a lot of important decisions this year, like how to disenfranchise 500,000 people in the state of Michigan from having their vote counted at a national convention. He's also the guy that came up here with a rather fraudulent endorsement process that attacked our incumbent mayor. However you think about him, it was kind of a bogus process for making that endorsement. And this is the guy that did it. This is the guy that can be voted out at a state convention. This is the guy that has enough misplaced responsibilities that he should be thrown out. And the people that can throw him out are the people that control the party. And those people have control because of the precinct delegates. And there's no place that it's been advertised how you can become a precinct delegate in the state of Michigan. Find it. I couldn't find it. I did Google it, and I found a Michigan Democratic Party 2006 press release that talked about it. I even found a web page that talked about it. It said 2006. I could not find it as a 2008. So here's my theory, okay? If you want to get involved in the change of this country, you're really wasting your time to try to create a third party. That never works. It has a marginal impact. Nader effectively cost us a presidency, and he didn't really produce anything. Brought us George Bush. You really have to get involved in the existing major parties. And you can bring your green philosophy or your libertarian philosophy or your conservative philosophy into either the Democratic Party or Republican Party. But you got to get involved. And here's how you get involved. You become a precinct delegate. On my radio show an hour ago, I made mention that of one of the black churches in Flint, had 500 people sign up to be a precinct delegate, they would change politics in Genesee County by just doing that. That's how phenomenal that process is, and you're not being told. And what you have to do is you have to sign up to be a precinct delegate. Now, if this is broadly broadcast and it's going to be picked up throughout the state of Michigan, this applies to the state of Michigan. Anybody else, you got to call somebody in your state and find out how you become a precinct delegate. I couldn't find an exact hit on what the filing date is. In 2006, it was May 16th, so my guess is there's a filing deadline on the 13th for partisan candidates. It's probably that same date. Sometime on or about May 13th, you have to have this document in. You can go to the second floor of the county clerk's office in Michigan, and whatever county you're in, and they should have an affidavit for you to sign, declare your party, and your name is on the ballot. Go to a convention and begin to straighten up things in either one of the parties you want to choose to belong in. So if I had a guest, if I had call-ins, I would talk about that specifically. I feel very strongly about that because, I didn't see where political parties were mentioned in the Constitution, okay? That's a statutory created animal that has taken over a significant amount of the public's rights through the process of being named as a major party, the ability to put names on a ballot, the ability to control a nominating process. And it's fundamental to democracy that there be free and open access. And sometimes free and open access isn't somebody barring the gates to the door. It's simply a matter of not telling you what's going on. So my philosophy here is we got to be careful about the wolves among us because they just think we're a bunch of sheep. And I want to harden you up. If you want to get involved, get involved. Okay? If you don't want to get involved, then don't pretend you want to. If you want to get involved in local politics, you run for an office, you help somebody run for an office. If you're dissatisfied with the major political parties, either create a new one, that'll take 20 years, or get involved in the ones you can. And you do that by becoming a precinct delegate. Later on, you can join the party as a paid member, and that might get you some status. But the fundamental votes, party members don't vote on this, only precinct delegates. In that process for deciding the direction of the Michigan Democratic Party. Now, it's 10:22. This is the point in time that I would hope that in the future I get a lot of phone calls. Maybe what I ought to do is bring my own laptop down here with a LAN card if I can get out so I can take these online. But I want you to think about what a responsible citizen is supposed to do. I want you to think about the political parties, and I want you to make a personal decision to encourage a family member to get involved or do it yourself. My name's Terry Bankert. This is Good Morning Flint on Flint Talk Radio. My special thanks to Steve Myers for allowing me to be on this program, and I hope you find this of some benefit to you. I did an article a couple days ago. I posted it. Actually, it was April 24th. That'd be Thursday. And I'm in the process. I haven't completed it. And I don't know if you can see this, but and I don't know what Steve needs to do. So I'll just hold this up for a minute, and if Steve can focus on it, he can. And if he can't, he can't. That it's Robert Zerbin's book, Energy Victory. And this book is... it's pretty well read. It's got some soft spots in it. But he argues that the Saudis are the root of all evil besetting Americans, and we're not acting like they are. He argues that there's an indistinguishable wedding. Well, these are my words, but this is his argument. Wedding of the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia. And look at what's going on right now. Our country is basically being looted by the oil conglomerates, which are a monopoly. They have a cartel that involves a bunch of little countries, Saudi Arabia, and then this dictator in Venezuela, and they're deciding what our oil costs are. I'm not an economist, but I was kind of shocked when I found that in 1 year, I guess gas was then about $2.53. The transaction cost for a barrel of oil to turn it into gas was $1.50 for the barrel. And gas was selling at about $2 to $3 a gallon. We are allowing these oil conglomerates have basically ruined our country. And for some reason, we bought into not funding our R&D, research and development, to wean ourselves of the dependence on oil. And now we're in the ludicrous position of having ethanol and other organic fuels now being forced into the marketplace. We haven't prepared for it, for what the cost of basic commodities are worldwide. So price of rice has tripled at the commodity level. Wheat's going up, cost of bread's going up. We got a lot of money, we have an infrastructure, our prices are going to rise. There are countries that are having food riots right now. And it's basically because we have allowed ourselves to be gouged by countries that control the oil, that have linkages to the presidents of both major parties. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to isolate either party. These people have a lot of extra cash, and they've bought Washington. That's my basic tenet. And the Bush family and the Clinton family have both benefited from being on boards that the Saudis back for getting some sort of a sweetheart deal. And we had countries, we had armies on that land, and we are still letting our oil prices spin out of control. Why haven't we nationalized the oil fields? Why haven't we taken over the oil fields in Iraq to pay for this war? It's beyond me. We have armies on the ground over there. Why are we suffering in America? As a side issue, I'm always amazed that when you hear reports about the heroin production in Afghanistan, and it's rising, and they're still dominating the world market, and we have armies over there. So something's just not right at the national level. And I think that this book, Robert Zern's book, talks about the Saudis, and he's also talking about the arguments for ethanol and methanol fuels and how we need to wean ourselves from oil dependency. In the future, as I come up with one of these topics, I'll bring in a speaker to talk about it specifically. And this is a juncture where I'd like to hear your comments on it, though I can't at this juncture. But this is how we're going to go with this program. If you have any observations or questions you'd like to pose to me, post it to flinttalk.com. You can send me a direct email at attorneybankert.com, or you can post it to my wall on Facebook. And if you go to either one of those sites, I'd really appreciate it if you post it to my Facebook wall or post it to flinttalk.com, and just let us know if you're listening. On April 24th, what's that other date? Yeah, okay. It looks like I got two of them posted on the same day. I think I did an early edition from one of the other days. But here I talked about, I posed the questions. Are we in the U.S. headed for a perfect storm of economic chaos? And my answer was yes, and here's why. Because in this country, or in this world, we have a scarcity of a principal natural resource, and that's oil. In this country, we're beginning to have economic dependency on foreign powers. I mean, look at what's going on to with our dollar right now, and also look at the level of investment in our corporations by foreign countries. We have in this world, I think, a pending proliferation of nuclear armaments through terrorist organizations. Whatever the Russians did, they dropped the ball, and a lot of this stuff got into the system. And I think we're just living in fear that someday a dirty bomb's going to go off someplace. And it's not going to be by a government, it's going to be by a terrorist organization. We have an economic food shortage because commodities have tripled and they're still rising. And we have governmental instability spreading throughout the third world. Now, I'm not making this stuff up. I pull all this stuff out of Google News. We have global warming, and I'll give a caveat here. Cyclical or man-made, but it's happening, and it's changing the very face of the world. I think we're about to lose either an Antarctic shelf or a polar ice cap. I have relatives in Atlanta, Georgia, and someday they may be on a seaport, on the ocean. We have environmental damage caused by humans, unregulated. What happens when all the rainforests come down? What happens to our oxygen production? You know, I'm not going to be a tree hugger here. I'm just talking about we got to breathe this air. You got to breathe this air. What are we doing to it? We have our military, the greatest military on the planet Earth, is stretched thin on two fronts. We are at jeopardy for disruptions in other parts of the world right now, not being able to respond to it. Our prestige is at an all-time worldwide low. Draw your own conclusions as to why. Take a look at our school systems and what's going on in this country compared to what's going on in other parts of the world. The United States has diminished educational attainment. We have a disappearing middle class. The middle class are the economic stakeholders, the people that should have the economic wherewithal and education to cause change in a stable democracy. Has this perfect storm ever occurred before? Now, here I'm stretching back to what I've read, and that was during the Industrial Revolution and subsequently World War I, World War II, except we were on the winning side then. And we have a revolution on our hands. I just don't know what to call it. And what's really different today, based on some of the reading I've done, is that we truly are all in this together. It's not going to be isolated. With the internet, with the globalization of the economies, with the mutual dependency on one natural resource, oil, we're all in this together. We have some countries that are going to be tremendously wealthy for a long period of time. I read something about the adults in Saudi Arabia, like some huge percentage don't have to work. I'm going to guess it was either 80 to 90, but they've just got too much money there. And what they've done in Saudi Arabia, they have a religious cult that took the country over, basically. It's called Wahhabis. I'm pronouncing this wrong. It's Wahhabis. And from my readings, what I saw there was this was a fringe, very radical Muslim religion that wants to kill the foreigners, that because of the Saudi money and the Saudi backing has become a major world influence through these terrorist organizations. Our friends are our enemies. What a paradox. I think we got some dirty little people in Pakistan too, but that's what we're in jeopardy of. And so what we really need today, and pick your presidential candidate, but we need somebody with some courage, somebody who can see a little bit into the future, and has got the courage to make some things happen, and that we can stand behind them. And the Republican choice has already been made for McCain. Democratic choice is about to be made. My candidate's Obama, because I think Clinton's just part of the history that caused all this. Maybe McCain is too. But they're just two people. To turn this country around takes a team with a coalition of backing. And that backing arises through the support of local people advocating issues and providing financial and body support at the appropriate time to vote on things. That's where you become involved. Next time a political candidate comes by, don't worry about their geographic boundaries. You ask them what they're going to do about world hunger, our oil crisis, how we're going to economically protect our borders, how are we going to support the troops in the field, and when the heck do we bring them home, if we have to. Is there an agenda to not bring them home? Then tell us what it is. But we're at a critical point, and we just can't have these lightweights running our country. And we have to do hard and tough things. And sometimes we have to tolerate personalities we don't particularly like to cause an economic change to occur. I think we see that in Flint. I back the current mayor. I'm never going to oppose him, but I sure don't understand how he thinks. But, Flint's got to rebuild itself. The state's got to rebuild itself. This country's got to rebuild itself. And the number one thing is to put some strong people in office that can do their homework. I think Obama's the guy, but you don't sit back and wait for somebody else to make these decisions for you. So I'm going to segue back to this precinct delegate thing. Get involved. Get involved in a party. Get involved with a candidate. Call your congressman. That sounds kind of trite. Write your congressman a letter. I mean, he won't even answer your emails now, but just get involved. Get 5 people together and cause some change. If you're a member of a union, get loud in your union. If you belong to a block club, get loud in your block club about zoning enforcement. But cause some stuff to happen. I was born in this town. I'm going to die in this town. And the politics of Flint are changing. I don't anticipate ever being elected to anything, but that doesn't matter. You have to stay engaged in the communities you live in. At some juncture, I'm going to bring in people to talk about how we do that. And when you stay engaged in the community, you also need to know what resources are available so you can help other people. So my name is Terry Bankert. This is Good Morning Flint, Flint Talk Radio. I hope that this is a regular Saturday morning production. I'll have topics that I'll talk about. If you want to pose direct questions, you can take a look at what I've blogged during the week and ask me a question about it. Periodically, I'll bring in some speakers. I also wrote about waterboarding. I can't think of anything that just offends me more when I read these articles is how we're dancing around the issue that we have a policy of torturing prisoners of war. And what do we stand for in this country? You know, it's kind of like in criminal law. You know, there's a progression. You know, first somebody does a misdemeanor, then they do a felony. First they start with a nonviolent crime and they move to a violent crime. They just begin to think it's okay. And for some reason in this country, we think it's okay to have somebody feel like they're drowning, maybe cause permanent lung damage and brain damage, and put them through this process for a forced confession, and to do it openly as a policy of the government with a whole bunch of rationalizations. Is it or is it not? I mean, George Bush's explanation or wanting to define terms on waterboarding makes Bill Clinton's argument about what is seem like kindergartner's work. What is torture? Torture is when you pour water down somebody's nose and they think they're going to drown to get them to confess the things that they didn't do without an attorney present. Yeah, we have a real tough world here, okay? And our opponents are doing some really tough things. But that's what we have special private courts for. There are courts in D.C. that we don't know anything about to deal with national security issues. And there can be courts that we don't need to know things about that can make the decision on what kind of processes are appropriate, and that select members of Congress will be privy to that. I'm okay with that. I mean, you know, the terrorists aren't holding public meetings, but at the same time, what is the line? So, you know, the thing that comes home the most to me, just imagine they were doing it to our soldiers. What the heck would you be thinking? And that's how you measure this. But that was the article for April 27, 2008. My name is Terry Bankert. This is our program Good Morning Flint from Flint, Michigan, and on Flint Talk Radio. You'll be able to see this on a rebroadcast. This is our maiden voyage here. I brought far more material than I care to really put out now. And my real preference is to respond to your questions, have guests, or take live written questions off the internet. And I think what I'll do next time is I'll try to bring a laptop with a LAN card, and I'll answer those questions too. In terms of this presidential election, here's my thoughts about it. From the Democratic side, Republicans can do whatever they need to do. We'll sort out between the Democratic and Republican candidate in the fall. And it's, no holds barred contest. That's just the way it goes. That's how we do it in this country. But for today, Bill Clinton had a wife who was a very intelligent lady, was a success in her, is a success in her own right, and has held high public office. And it was thought that she was going to be the shoo-in to be president of the United States and to essentially allow us to return to the greatness of Bill Clinton, which was probably 60% of him, and move this country forward. But we have a competitive nominating process. And I think these political systems equalize and end up being the best thing. It's a long-term process of which it's an excruciating ordeal that the strong people fail. I'm still wondering what happened to Joe Biden. Joe, you were my guy, and you blew yourself up early on. He's gone. And this junior senator from nowhere named Barack Obama starts jumping around. And at first you think, okay, I'm a liberal. I'd love to have a black president, but good luck, buddy. But, he goes to a number of states dealing with Democratic conservatives to liberals, whites, Chinese, blacks, Hispanics, and he begins to prove himself. And that's what a presidential nominating process does. It allows you to prove yourself while your opponents attempt to disprove you. And he proved himself, and the community, the country, began to disapprove of Hillary through this excruciatingly public process. So I don't think the process is broken. I think it works. The Democrats seem preoccupied with worrying about a food fight at the National Convention. So what? What the heck is going on in these primaries? But what we clearly see is that a black man is on the doorstep of a presidential nomination by the Democratic Party in this country. And if he doesn't get it, a white woman will get it. And we've come a long ways. We've come a long ways. But I throw my hat on the Obama side. I'll never throw it on the McCain side. That's for other people to talk about, or I might talk about it later, but not today. And here's why. I read his book, The Audacity of Hope. I wouldn't call it great literature. It's almost like a really long press release. But he does talk about who he is and what he is and all those kinds of things. But I'm just stuck on the image. A black man, a professional black man, an articulate professional black man who speaks with tempered reason. And given what happened with Reverend Wright and some other things that have happened, the ability to address conflict quickly. All the requisites of the intellectual elite. I think there still are smart people that don't go to Harvard or Yale, but he's in that mix. And imagine the image that his candidacy will show the world, his presidency will show the world, with the proper team around him, with proper decisions being made concerning our military and economy. But to put a black man as leader in this country who has a Muslim heritage, we bond with the rest of the world. I mean, Spanish kings used to have to serve their daughters up to marry the English king. Here in this global economy, we're putting up the cream of the black community. And we're saying, the whites are saying, we can support this guy. And he's going to project a different image to the world. Maybe we can cut some of this crap out. What we really need to learn how to do is to get rid of our dependency on oil. We got to quit letting America be played with by economic interests because we're not protecting our economic borders. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be part of the global economy. We have to defend ourselves when that global economy subsidizes their own labor and their resources to beat our companies. So I think Barack Obama projects the right kind of image from the Democratic side. Maybe a little liberal, maybe a little young. You know, the people that are supporting McCain, I'm not going to say anything negative about him today. I'm obviously not in that camp. That's for another day. That's the kind of president that I want, and that's where I think this country is going. Today, on my, well, I guess that's pretty much what I have for today. I've kind of run through the topics that I had, Steve. And I'm at a point that I guess when you're done, you should just quit. But I'd like to make this weekly. I would like to, next week, to have 15 minutes worth of questions that I'm responding to you that you give to me. You can send me an email question at attorneybankert.com. You can post to flinttalk.com. You can find me on the Facebook. That link is on Flint Talk. And I'll be happy to respond to your inquiries next week. Definitely breaking down the barriers for access to power or resources is one thing I am always going to hammer on. And today's message was, I don't care what party, sign up to be a precinct delegate, go make some noise and talk about how your community should be, get involved in the decision-making process that is going to control your lives. So that maybe 2 years from now, we can have you involved in the process to pick the governor and lieutenant governor. My name's Terry Bankert. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Call recording has been completed.